Well, hi everybody, welcome back to the Toy Soldiers Studio. I'm Mannie Gentile, and on this episode of Toy Soldiers Forever, we're going to do a conversion. Conversions are always fun, and I think you'll really like this one, especially if it goes well. What we're going to do today is take this large-scale mule-drawn wagon. We're going to convert it into a 54 millimeter Civil War ambulance, okay? So you see there's quite a difference in size. This is 54 millimeter. This might be 80 millimeter. It's gigantic. So as you can see, it's going to take quite a bit of work to make the change, but I think we're all up to the task. Let's go into the workroom, shall we? Now we all remember the venerable old Lewis Marks Civil War ambulance that came with the blue and gray sets, those fabulous Civil War play sets in the late 50s and early 60s. But these model ambulances, look at this, were much narrower than a real Civil War ambulance. Now you can see in the photograph that a Civil War ambulance could accommodate 4 stretchers side by side or 8 men sitting down. There's no way that the Lewis Marks model can accomplish that. So our focus today is to turn that large-scale wagon into a 54 millimeter ambulance that's much more accurate than the old Marks model. Here we have the side-by-side comparison of the two ambulances. So that's our mission today. We're going to make the ambulance on the right out of a large-scale horse and wagon. Okay, just one more time for reference. Here's the size differential between what we're going to make and what we're making it from. You can see there is quite a difference there, especially when you can compare the horse to the mule. This is 54 millimeter, and I think this might be 85, or I mean, they're huge.
I know that one.
So let's start with disassembly. Before we can make the ambulance, we've got to take this thing apart. So we'll get underway. This is made by processed plastics. This is back when toys were actually made in the United States, back in the good old days. So we pull off the mules, and note the front wheels come with it, because this is sold as a covered wagon stagecoach set, and you use the front wheels for either of them. All right, we've got that. Now we look at the bottom. We got some tabs here. Let's deal with the wheels first. Okay, for this operation, we're going to use our trusty X-Acto razor saw. These things are fantastic. If you don't have one at your modeling bench, I highly recommend you get one. They come in different sizes, and they really make fast work of plastic. So here we go. We're going to saw off the wheels. That didn't take long at all. Now I'll do the other one, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, this next operation takes us out to the wood shop, where I'm going to be using my belt sander. I'm fortunate that I have a nice wood shop that I made myself out of what was a garage that wasn't being used, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of this place. Now what we're going to do is we're going to remove all of this stuff, the old axle tabs, the fifth wheel, and these tabs that hold the top on as well. And the way we're going to do that is real quickly and really simply, we're going to sand it off. Let's get started. Okay, the bottom is sanded nice and flat. By sanding, we also remove some of the locking tabs. Now it's time to just pull this thing apart And we've got our basic box. This we're going to set aside because we're going to be using it momentarily. What I need to do now is remove these little locking pockets where the top locked into. There's one on each side, and I'm simply going to use an X-Acto and pare those off. Okay, so this wagon came with this goofy Sierra Jacks label on it, and as you can see from around the edge, it's like a lot of labels. It's almost impossible to get off, to peel off. So I just got a little container, poured some mineral spirits in it, and it floated right off. Look, it's a piece of cake. I'm going to flip it over and do the other side. Better living through chemistry. Okay, now it's time to set the height of the ambulance. It's going to be shorter and it's going to be lower. So I look at the canopy here and I see there's a molded line right there. I'm going to score along that line and then break this section off. Then when I put the canopy back on the wagon body, I'm going to line it up with this second scored line right here, this representation of a board. Those two adjustments are going to bring the canopy down about an inch. Okay, that folds it over nice and tight. It didn't break it off completely, but it gives me a real good line here to cut through. So I'm going to do that right now. There we go. That wasn't too bad. Okay, so there we've got the canopy and the wagon bed, and it's time to fit the two together. We've already shortened the canopy portion by about ½ an inch, and as I mentioned, we're going to bring the canopy down to that second scored line that's been molded into the body. So I'm going to fit these together. We'll see how this goes. These struts go inside the box. The sides go to the outside of the box. All right, so let's fit this together. Struts in and sides out. Okay, and I bring the top of the canopy right down to that second line. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hot glue this to this. Okay, so here we go. Once again, we're going to line up the bottom edge of the cover with this scribed line that designates a board. That's the second line down. So let me slap some hot glue in there with this cheap piece of junk glue gun, which is, as the young people say, a POS, and I won't go into detail on that. Okay, we've got a lot of slop here, which I'll be able to take off with an X-Acto blade. Okay, I've got all of that excess hot glue cleaned off, and I've got the height exactly the way I want it. Now it's time to adjust the length. I have a mark right here. It's going to be this long, and the next step is to go back out to the bandsaw and chop that baby in half. This is the part that got cut off the ambulance body. Now I need this because I have to remove this back wall right here. That's going to be the back of the new ambulance. So what I'll be doing is I'll be cutting that out along the interior lines with an X-Acto knife. Okay, now we move from the sander to the bandsaw. We've got the bottom of that wagon box nice and smooth, and we have to have a place to attach the wheels. So we're going to be cutting axles out of a nice little scrap piece of pine using the bandsaw. Safety first. Okay, now we move to the drill press. We're going to use that because in our axles, we have to drill little holes in the ends to accommodate the axles of the wheels we're going to be using. Okay, the hot glue's ready to go. I've got my positions marked. I got my axles handy. Going to lay down some hot glue along this line. Put my first axle on. That looks pretty good. There's just a little bit of overlap on each side between the wagon box and the end of the axle. The end of the axle overlaps by about, it looks like 1/16 of an inch, something like that. Not very much, but just enough to keep the wheels out away from the ambulance body. Now I'll put down my second line of hot glue with my cheap glue gun and put the second axle on. And that looks just about right. Does it? Yep, that's good. Okay, the axles are on, and let me show you the wheels that I'm going to be using for this. Take the ambulance away. This is a classic toy soldier's cannon. They're really nice little cannons, but I'm not using plastic cannons anymore. I've moved to all metal guns that I've been getting from William Britton's. Still a nice little gun, but I have several of them, so I've been sacrificing their wheels for the cause. These are CTS cannon wheels, and these are what I'll be using for the ambulance. Well, now you can see I've got the back glued on, and I've also installed the tailgate down because I want to put this in a scenario where stretchers are being loaded or unloaded onto the ambulance. Now it's time to prime. Here comes that very anticipated moment of installing the wheels. The wheels are going to go in these little axles. Once again, these are CTS Classic Toy Soldiers cannon wheels. I'm going to take a nice pair of dikes. That's a metal axle. Let's see if that'll... There we go. There's one. There's the other. They're ready to go. The hot glue gun is all warmed up. Now it's time to put on some wheels. A little bit of hot glue there. Plug the wheel into the hole. A little bit of hot glue there. Plug the wheel into the hole. Same thing other side. A little bit of hot glue. Wheel in. A little bit of hot glue. And yeah, you guessed it. Wheel in. Well, it's been a long day, but we're just about done. We've got the last step before us, and that is putting the label on the side of the ambulance. Here I made it an ambulance belonging to the 3rd Michigan Volunteer Infantry. If you follow my blog, and I will have the link to that at the end of this video, the unit that fights on my toy soldiers table for the Union is the 3rd Michigan. They were from Grand Rapids, Michigan, as am I. And their foil, that is the ones they always fight against, are the 3rd South Carolina Infantry Battalion. And I've created both of those in 54 millimeter. The 3rd Michigan, I cast and painted 287. That's how many were at the Peach Orchard at Gettysburg. And of my 3rd South Carolina, I have 202. That's the number that was facing the 3rd Michigan at Gettysburg. So I'm all set to put these on the ambulance. Well, here we are. We've got our finished ambulance ready to go off to do duty with the 3rd Corps. And just as a reminder, this is the original dimensions of that wagon. That's everything we removed, plus the 2 horses. It was a one-day project, and I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. Okay, our ambulance is finished. Now I'm going to put it on the road, pair it up with a team of horses, and it joins that long, slow ambulance train going from Gettysburg to Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Thanks for tuning in. I'll have links at the end of this video, and do stop by the Toy Soldiers studio again, because you just never know what's going on at Toy Soldiers Forever.